Are you sure your retirement plan covers all your expenses, investments, and income sources? I've helped hundreds of retirees, yet 3 hidden costs, ones almost nobody spots, can quickly unravel decades of planning. So in this video, I'll show you exactly which costs to watch for, plus the simple steps that can make securing your retirement easier than you think. Let me show you the first hidden cost. Think about the last time you planned a big trip. You spent months researching flights and hotels, making sure everything was covered. But the moment you left the airport, the extras started piling up. $25 for parking, $30 for a taxi, $50 for a sweatshirt you didn't plan on. Retirement works the same way. Most people plan for the big ticket items, housing, maybe some travel, and forget the hidden costs. And that's when the surprise hits. Retirement ends up being far more expensive than they ever imagined. So what are the expenses that everyone seems to forget to plan for? When you're working, one of your biggest costs doesn't show up in your monthly budget. That's because your employer is covering it, or it's being quietly deducted from your paycheck. But in retirement, that invisible cost becomes one of your biggest monthly expenses. According to Fidelity's recent cost of care study, the average 65-year-old will need $172,500 in after-tax dollars just to cover healthcare expenses in retirement. And that doesn't even include long-term care. So how do you keep this expense from sneaking up on you? Before you start dreaming about cruises or golf memberships, take a hard look at healthcare costs. Make sure you're building them into your retirement plan, because this is one cost you can't afford to ignore. Even if you plan for healthcare, there's one expense that sneaks up on nearly every retiree, and it never seems to go away. Since the day you bought your home, you've probably dreamed of the moment you'd make your last mortgage payment. Finally, living for free. But here's the catch. Owning a home is a lot like raising kids. Remember when you thought saving for college was the last big expense? Then came weddings, then grandkids. There's always something new. Your house is the same. Once the mortgage is gone, surprise expenses pop up. A new roof, a driveway, unexpected repairs. So how do you protect yourself from these never-ending costs? Set aside a budget on top of your mortgage costs so you have the funds available when these expenses come up. They're not going to be showing up for the same amount on the first of every month like your mortgage was, but they're certainly still going to be there in retirement, whether you plan for them or not. Home expenses can slowly chip away at your savings, but another cost can hit suddenly, and it's one that many retirees never plan for. Think of it like a flood. At first, a few sandbags are enough, but as the water rises, you're pouring in more time, energy, and money just to hold the wall together. That's what it can feel like when you're helping family. It might start small, covering a bill, helping with childcare, pitching in for a medical expense. Over time, those acts of love can quietly grow into one of your biggest retirement expenses. So how do you prepare? Start by asking, who might really need your help? Adult kids? Grandkids? Aging parents? If you plan for these possibilities now, your generosity won't throw your retirement off course. It will fit right alongside the life you've worked so hard to build. We've seen how hidden costs show up in your expenses: helping family, home upkeep, and healthcare. But there's another hidden cost inside your portfolio. And if you're not careful, it can drain your savings even faster. Picture a bucket of water. You keep pouring water in, and it looks solid. But then you notice a small leak at the bottom. It doesn't seem like much, yet day after day, that slow drip keeps draining the bucket. That's what inflation does to your retirement savings. You expect to take money out. That's normal. But the real problem is the leak. Rising prices quietly chipping away at your money's value over time. Let's see how this can play out. Say you retire with $1 million, planning to spend $40,000 a year. If your investments grow at 6% and inflation is 2%, you could make it 35 years and still end with $1 million. But change just one thing. Inflation goes up to 4%. Now, instead of ending with $1 million, you're just $110 away from running out of money. That small change is the leak that can ruin your plan. So how do you patch the leak? You can't stop inflation, but you can keep water flowing in. In retirement, that means keeping part of your money invested for growth, like stocks or funds that outpace inflation. Cash alone won't cut it. Growth is the stream pouring in from up top, offsetting the drip you can't avoid. That's how your bucket stays full enough to last. But it's not just about picking the right investments. What can really matter is how you respond when things don't go as planned. Here's the problem. Most retirees don't respond well. This Dalbar study shows it clearly. Over 30 years, the S&P 500 earned almost 10% a year, but the average investor barely made half of that. Why? Because they jumped out when things looked scary and bought back in when things felt safe. Buy high, sell low. It's the most expensive habit in investing. And here's what makes this such a costly mistake. Take a look at these stats on the S&P 500 over the last 45 years. Since 1980, the market has fallen 10% or more in over half the years. On average, it pulls back about 14% in every year, which means if you're retired for 20 or 30 years, it's almost guaranteed you'll live through many of these drops. Each one will test your emotions. So how do you avoid this mistake? Funny enough, some of the best investment results belong to people who passed away. Why? Because they never touched their accounts. They stayed invested the whole time. That's the real skill most retirees struggle with, staying calm during the ride. Investing is like a roller coaster. There are ups and downs, sometimes sharp ones. But the ride only works if you stay in your seat and let it play out. That's why having a clear plan or an advisor by your side can make all the difference when the ride gets bumpy. Because in retirement, the winners aren't the ones who panic. They're the ones who stay the course. But it's not just about staying invested. The timing of market drops can make all the difference. When they invest, most people think, as long as I average 6% a year, I'll be fine. But in retirement, it's not just how much you earn, it's when you earn it. Take a look at this example on screen from Schwab. Two investors each start with $1 million and take $50,000 a year from their portfolio. Both see the exact same 15% drop. The only difference, one experiences it in the very first years of retirement. The other doesn't see it until 10 years later. The result? The first investor runs out of money years earlier, and the second still has hundreds of thousands left. Same money, same withdrawals, same average returns. The only difference is timing. So how do you avoid the timing risk? By keeping a safety net in your portfolio. Think of it like driving through a storm. If you've got an emergency lane to pull into, your safer assets, you don't have to risk driving on the highway when it gets rough. If all your money's in stocks, you might be forced to sell when prices are low. But with bonds or cash set aside, you can tap into those during rough years and give your stocks time to recover. That's how you handle the second hidden cost, investment mistakes. But the third hidden cost isn't about the market. It's about how you spend your money. Many people think they can spend the same amount every year in retirement, but that's a recipe for disaster. Think of it like driving. On a sunny day, you drive the speed limit, maybe even a little faster. But if you hit a blizzard, you slow down and adjust until the road clears. Retirement works the same way. When markets are strong, that's your sunny day. Maybe spend a little more, enjoy a trip. But when markets are rough, that's the time to ease up. So how do you actually do this? Instead of locking yourself into the same spending every year, build flexibility into your plan. If your investments have a great year, that's the time to enjoy some extra spending. If they're down, hold off on the extras. That simple shift gives your portfolio room to recover and helps you enjoy the retirement you've worked so hard for. Flexibility with spending is only one part of the equation. There's another hidden cost that can quietly drain your savings, and it doesn't come from the markets. Think of your savings as one big glass of water. In retirement, you pour that water into cups for living expenses, healthcare, travel, even family. But there's always one more cup to fill. Uncle Sam's. That cup represents taxes, and it can take up much more than you'd expect. So how do you keep more water for yourself? With smart tax planning, one strategy is moving some money into a Roth now. That way, you take it out later and it's completely tax-free. No surprise bills in retirement. Another strategy is choosing carefully which accounts you pull from each year. Done right, that keeps your tax bill lower and your savings working for you longer. Each move may feel small, but together they leave more in your glass for the retirement you want, not just the taxes you owe. And remember, taxes aren't the only hidden cost you may face in retirement. Even your Social Security check has hidden cuts that most people don't realize until it's too late. If you want to see what those are and how to avoid them, check out this video next.